Welcome to Danville, Virginia, where history and architecture on every street, where the Dan River provides a beautiful backdrop, and where the people that call Danville home welcome you with warm Southern hospitality. Danville, Virginia, a place to call home. Choose your landscape, from plush crop fields to architectural gems to wide open farmland. We have it all. Explore new places and bring history to life. Our history is America's history. Experience the diversity. Visit us here in Danville and Southside, Virginia, and share what you love.
Every visit to Danville should start where the city began, on the shores of the Dan River. History buffs will love the fact that veterans of the American Revolutionary War, they would come to this little village by the Dan, where the river was the shallowest, so they could fish and camp out. And probably as they looked across the river, they would see fields of tobacco plants. The river was used for transportation by the farmers, but also it was used to run the machines in the tobacco warehouses and later on in the textile mills. And then nearby trains could transport the tobacco throughout the U.S. and to the coast for worldwide distribution. Take a walk down a cobblestone street into the Tobacco Warehouse District and you will see the best of industrial architecture. Walk across or rent a bike and ride across the historic pedestrian bridge till you get to the Riverwalk on the other side of the Dan River. The Riverwalk is a 12-mile paved walkway that passes beautiful scenery, but also leads you to the Dan Daniel Memorial Park, where there's a Veterans Memorial and the Autobots Baseball Stadium for special events at the Carrington Pavilion, and also at the Farmers Market and the Community Market. You can enjoy outdoor art all throughout the River District, and especially 3 very large murals painted on the outside of buildings that tell more stories about tobacco, trains, and transportation.
So the Danville Museum is a little gem. There are many, many different histories all in one house. One of them is a civil rights exhibit documenting Martin Luther King's tour through Danville during the civil rights on several occasions. It also gives the school kids access to the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. You will also encounter the Camilla Williams exhibition. Camilla Williams was the first African-American woman to receive a full opera contract, and she has got 2 levels of the museum. The first level shows her costumes in her professional life, and the lower level explains her timeline. She grew up in Danville during segregation and was not able to actually enter the building that now holds her exhibits. We talk about the Civil War and all the implications of the Civil War. It is important for people to understand that when you come to the Danville Museum, you see the full history, and you can also see what's happening today and the conversations around community, diversity, persistence, and change that we are now discussing at the Danville Museum of Fine Arts and History.
One of the tours that I give is the Halbrook Ross Green Book Guided Walking Tour. And the Green Book, it was originated in New York City by a mailman named Victor Hugo Green. And he ran the Green Book from 1936 to 1966. So the Green Book was a traveler's guide for African Americans because it was unsafe to travel from north to south. And so the Green Book would list places where they could stay, where they could get gas, and where they could eat. One of the most significant things about High Street Baptist Church is that Dr. Martin Luther King would speak there twice on his many visits. This church started at the First Baptist Church here on North Main Street. And so at the time of emancipation, the formerly enslaved, they were tired of worshiping in the balcony. And so they wanted their own church. They formed what was called the First Colored Baptist Church, and the congregation would soon be known as High Street Baptist Church. Another interesting area of the city is referred to the Black Business District, and it's comprised of Spring Street, High Street, and North Union. This was called like the Black business mecca of sorts, because there were Black and brown businesses, beauty shops, barber shops, shoe cobbler shops. There was actually a Black bank. This Black business mecca was a booming place, a popular place, and it was essential for African Americans in the city because oftentimes we could not shop on Main Street at the Woolworths and the main thoroughfare. These are all the reasons why you would enjoy your visit to Danville, because not only do you get Civil War history, but there is something for everybody.
Tucked away in the Old West End Historic District sits a quaint museum. Langhorne House being a small footprint, a long history, and many stories of the famous Virginians who resided within its walls. In 1874, tobacco auctioneer Chiswell Dabney Langhorne and his wife, Nanny Witcher Keene, built their modest house at the 1100 West Main Street location, a home to the 5 girls and 3 boys. The original family struggled during the Reconstruction after the war between the states. Mr. Langhorne made a fortune in railroad contracting during the 1880s, then launching 4 of his 5 daughters into society for the purpose of an advantageous match. This meant marrying wealthy, even if it is Northern money, Nancy Langhorne Astor. The middle child married an Englishman, Waldorf Astor, who eventually became a member of the House of Parliament and Lord of the Realm. In addition to raising 5 Astor children, Nancy was very involved in her husband's political career and became the first seated woman in the British Parliament in 1919.
So every bit of our material within our collection is a conglomeration of Danville's true history. We have items within our collection that date from the founding fathers of Danville in Southern Virginia all the way up to the civil rights. Our main goal with this is to preserve the history that's already happened within Danville so that we have a greater understanding of why things are the way they are within the city. You might as well say America's history is Danville's history. Our history stretches pre-Revolutionary War to the colony days, all the way to civil rights. The architectural history of Danville stretches, again, from federal time period, which is going to be anywhere from 1780 to 1820. We also have the new white mill that's going to be developed along with the pedestrian bridge that will add another 2,000 feet of walking space to Riverwalk. The river alone for outdoor sportsmen is great. Kayaking. Soon we will have whitewater rafting within the luge system at the White Mill Complex. It's truly becoming a walking city for anybody that just loves to get out and get some fresh air and really enjoy the scenery.
So this is a unique story in Virginia, that sort of dependency on an industry, being a mill town in many ways. Schoolfield's a newly minted historic district on the National and State Register of Historic Places. It has over 1,000 structures still existing from when it was created in 1903 as a company town of Dan River Mills. And Dan River Mills manufactured cloth for apparel and home from 1882 until 2006. And Schoolfield was a company town built for textile workers. They created a social system there that allowed people to get life insurance, education, along with housing and work at the mill. Of course, there were 2 requirements for you to live in the mill village in Schoolfield, and one of them, beginning in 1903, was that you worked at the mill. So you couldn't live there if you didn't work at the mill. And then the second one was that you were white. Now, Dan River Mills only hired white operatives, so things like spinners or doffers or things like that, until 1969. So this was a very segregated industry in its early years, and Schoolfield can tell that story. There's still a lot of remaining buildings around, but recently it's been revitalized and it's in the process of revitalization. And it's really gonna see some big changes in the next couple of years. We really hope that you can come to Schoolfield, see the changes that are happening, understand the history of the mill village, the lives of the workers who lived there, and the history of Dan River Mills and what's coming next for Danville.
I think Danville is really an example of sort of that boom, bust, and rebirth. Danville is absolutely unique in the cluster of architecturally diverse homes. Millionaires Row is a literal row down the main street of Danville. That is the example of the boom time of Danville. It has the wealthiest homes, the bankers, tobaccoists, textile mavens sort of all lived within that district. So they're the most impressive houses built in the late 1800s, and they really represent sort of an amazing array of that late Victorian sort of period architecture, a little bit of Gothic, the high Victorian moving into the Edwardian. And then Millionaires Row is housed within a district called the Old West End. The Old West End comprises 140 homes. They were, again, the upper echelon of Danville at the time. It then fell sort of on hard times, was disregarded, and now is alive and vibrant because of new people moving into town that have discovered Danville. And so I think Danville really represents the potential of regrowth, the potential of using its history to really draw people in, to draw a new sense of identity, and to rebuild itself, and that sense of rebirth that can come from understanding your history.
Pennsylvania County is the largest county in the state of Virginia and one of the oldest. A lot of history, a lot of natural beauty here in Pennsylvania County. We have beautiful old homes, rolling farmland, natural scenery. We have historic sites, we have beautiful museums, we have friendly people, great restaurants. It's a great place to spend time. One of Pennsylvania County's historic and architectural treasures is Yates Tavern. This is a beautifully reconstructed colonial era tavern that was built originally before the American Revolution, maybe even as old as the time of the French and Indian War. So it's the only existing structure known in the state of Virginia that still has that old Elizabethan style overhang. So it has a very unique architectural history. The tavern would have been a place where travelers would stop to spend the night, to rest their horses, to get a meal, to have something to drink, but also served a very important function in the community. First of all, it was like a neighborhood pub. They would gather there maybe to have something to drink, but also go there to get news, to share news around the community, to pick up what riders that were coming through were saying. So this would have been the place where the people in our community first heard of lots of very important historic events, such as the British surrender at Yorktown. They probably would have learned that there at Yates Tavern when the rider came through in October of 1781, or the Patriot victory at the Battle of Cowpens earlier that year. Nowadays, it's a great site for community events. We do historic themed events there featuring reenactors. We have picnics there. Great place to visit with the family. If you're passing through, make sure to save some time to spend a few minutes out at Yates Tavern. You won't regret it.
The cultivation of tobacco is interwoven with the history of Virginia. Danville and Pennsylvania County are part of what's known as the Old Belt, or the Old Bright Belt. And this comes from the sweet-scented, bright yellow tobacco that has been cultivated here for 200 years. The tobacco culture can be seen in the largely intact landscapes. Visitors driving around the county will notice farmhouses and the tobacco barns. If you drive just a few counties outside of Pennsylvania County and Danville, the tobacco barns largely go away. It's a reminder and a symbol. The barns are a symbol of that way of life that has largely disappeared. Tobacco is still grown here, but that family, that way of life where the entire family would be involved in the growing and the curing of tobacco, that has kind of died down, died away, unfortunately. But you could get hints of that in the landscape with the barns. The tobacco was cultivated in the county, but then it was brought to Danville and South Boston and some of the other towns as well to be sold at the markets. So then you have the tobacco warehouses that are still standing. So all of this together gives you the sense of this history that's been so important here.
clerk's office at Callens was built around 1771. The county seat for the county was at Callens from around 1767 to 1777. The courthouse across the street was about to fall down when we started restoring it, and it was always known as the courthouse and jail. And several years ago, we had a young man from Callens who wanted to move the post office, which was right there at the intersection of Franklin Turnpike and 57. They chose to put it along with our building so that people could see all three buildings at the same time. Landon Oaks' family owned all the property. It was he and his family that donated the building, the clerk's office, to the county. He decided to invest in a war memorial, so it was he and his family that funded the entire project in honor and memory of the people from the Callens area who were killed in the line of service.
This is the 1813 Clerks Building that was, when Chatham was the county seat in, I think, 1777. They built this to record the deeds, and it was much like the one in Callens. It was a bit bigger, and it was really the governmental seat of the county. There's the information about the race to the Dan, 1781, which was instrumental, really, in bringing about the end of the Revolutionary War. There is the character of Raleigh Martin, who was a physician and lieutenant colonel in the 53rd Virginia Regiment, and was at Pickett's charge with Louis Armistead, and later came home to Chatham, was a physician for many years. Then the third guy is Claude Swanson, who practiced law in Chatham and had a tremendous career as a member of the House of Delegates, the House of Representatives, was a senator, he was a governor of Virginia, and he was then the Secretary of Navy under Franklin Roosevelt.
After we bought the property for the train station, the Ennis Business Farm Company gave the Pittsylvania Historical Society the building next to the train station. We're sharing that building with the Pittsylvania Library. They are using it for their genealogy and history center, what we call a heritage museum, collecting and showing items related to the late 1800s and early 1900s, which we figure the newer generations have no idea what they are, and they should know, should see them. We have quite a rather interesting display. In one of our rooms, we have a 1900s kitchen with the wood stove, the ice box. Also, we have a bedroom, 1900s bedroom. We also have a 1900s parlor. We have a pump organ and a Victorian love seat. And in one corner, we have a large spinning wheel, one that they call a walking spinning wheel. It's the most interesting town, really, in county, because interested people have a good time talking.
Regardless of where I was born, where I was raised, where I've lived, people are the same. They just live in different areas.
This area specifically, Caswell County, was the largest county, the first county in North Carolina. It has a rich tradition of agriculture, one of the richest counties in North Carolina when it was first formed, tobacco and cotton being the primary crops in the area. What I'd love for visitors to the area to do would be to come by the Richmond Miles History Museum. And in there we have artifacts from not only Caswell County, but the entire central Piedmont area. We have rooms devoted to various aspects of the county's history. The house is actually known as the Gatewood House before it became the museum. Maud Gatewood, probably one of the most premier artists for North Carolina, was born in the house, lived in the house, not only was one of the best artists in the whole state, but she was also a county commissioner. She was also on the police force. She was an entrepreneur, a world traveler, and her paintings are worth many hundreds of thousands of dollars these days.
It seems like, especially in the Black community, history starts here. It's the historic courthouse located here in Yanceyville on the town square.
It was built in 1861 by William Percival, my great-great-grandmother, whose name was Henrietta Jeffries. She was a nurse midwife practicing in the town of Milton, North Carolina. She helped mothers deliver babies, about 400 babies over the course of time. The reason why that is important is because right here in this building where we are right now, in 1912, she was indicted for practicing medicine without a license. And in 1913, April 15th to be exact, she was brought to trial here in this room. On this side had nothing but black people, and over here was nothing but white people. And knowing that kind of history and understanding how far we have come, especially in this area, is vitally important. And this is the only court case in the state of North Carolina that I'm familiar with where she did not have a lawyer. The judge stepped down from the bench to become her lawyer. And the case proceeded, and 12 white men found her guilty. And the judge, who was, again, her lawyer, stepped back up on the bench and overturned the verdict. There's a lot of historical locations for people to come and take a look at when you come out to Caswell County. History starts here.
And then you just journey on down the road to Milton, and we have the home of Thomas Day. First of all, it was called the Yellow Tavern. It used to be a major stagecoach stop the way from north going into Atlanta, from north to south. Then came along Thomas Day, who is an artisan, cabinet maker, furniture maker from Dinwiddie, Virginia, who traveled to Milton in 1823. There you will see his furniture, you'll see part of his workshop. We have a replica of the workbench that he would have used. We have tools that have been donated from the Midwestern Association, and you will see all the different types of furniture in the churches, the Milton Presbyterian Church, High Street Baptist Church, and Milton Baptist Church. You will see the architecture and the pews that he made out of walnut. So Milton, every little corner you turn, it's a little bit of history. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we try to bring it to modern day so everybody will understand why we love Milton so much.